Copyright disclaimer. Under Title 17 U.S.C. Section 107, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing nonprofit, educational, or personal use, tips a balance in favor of fair use. Okay, I'm just going to play a little bit of this. Erin Smith Levin interviewing an ex-Scientologist, child Scientologist. She's explaining how her mother was not happy with her when she's 14 years old, unless she would be on staff in Scientology. You know, conditional love, just like narcissism. So she was 14 years old. She did not want to be, well, she wanted to be on staff, but the place she wanted to be on staff, and I can't remember the town name in Florida, did not allow 14-year-olds. However, Tampa did. Kind of makes you wonder about the Tampa Bay Times stories. But anyways, I'm going to play some of it. And here we go.
At one point, my mom's like, oh, I'll pay for you to move in with Kafir, her reg, who is like, right, yeah, a grown 30-year-old something male. I don't know how old he was, but...
Isn't that wonderful? Have your 14-year-old girl go and live with a man who's 30 years old, Kafir. Kind of like selling your children, isn't it? Which does go on in trafficking. Maybe mom thought she could get some points by giving up her daughter.
I think well, maybe that's rude. I don't think he was 30, but he looked like he was 30. He was late 20.
It's not rude to say someone's 30 years old. Come on.
Oh, okay, good. Now,
if he was 22 and you're like, oh, doesn't look a day under 30.
I think he really was that young, but he just looked really old. Like, you know, not saying that 30's old. 30's the new 20, guys, so.
How old did you say?
Do you guys see the disconnect there? Do you see the disconnect? Like, how can she or Erin, and I'm not trying to throw shade, all I'm saying is there's a lot of disconnect in Scientology because of the mind control that they were put under. I'm not saying they're bad people at all. I'm just saying that is really, really wrong what's going on there. By all accounts. On the outside, that doesn't fly at all.
You were 24?
24.
That's right, because you were born in 2000.
Yeah.
I remember when you and I were first talking, you mentioned Kafir. Did Kafir and Sammy Khan work together?
Yeah.
Right. That's why I remember that.
Yeah.
So, like, your mom's totally okay with you. Like, first of all, it's funny to me that she, like, pushed you to join staff at Tampa knowing you had absolutely no way to get there.
Yeah. I mean, she drove me, like, once or twice, but she was just, like, not really wanting to deal with it. So she's like I said...
Not wanting to deal with it. Where have we heard that one before? You see, these are the Scientology parents that get their children into trouble by not caring. So, let's proceed.
I would just spend the night at other staff members' houses, and they were really nice to me. Like, you know, those were like fond memories of just like, you know, sleeping on...
Fortunately, it didn't necessarily have to go right. Or what do they say in Scientology? Make it go right. Sending your 14-year-old daughter off to live with different staff members could have been a very bad situation.
People's couches and stuff. Like, it was a good time, but, you know, at that point, it was just not viable. And, like, Tampa was like, she's not able to do, like, posts on, like, weeknights, so, like, we need to come up with a solution. And that's when... My mom was very close to Kafir, so she's like, oh, he has an extra room. I'll pay for you to rent a room from him. And I think she was paying him like $500 or $600 a month.
I don't even know what to say about that. And I'm also wondering, especially amongst the ex-Scientologists, how old were you guys usually? I'm talking more so about the girls. How old were you guys usually when you got married? Because there's a lot of underage marriages. That is something that Scientology pushes, and a lot of people don't seem to understand that with that no sex rule, that's part of the issue, but I think there's a lot more to it. By forcing you guys off into marriages that maybe you don't want to be in, it's like some type of way for them to not be liable. And a lot of the young girls are forced to marry when they don't want to. Forced to marry men they don't want to marry. Which is a crime.
Month or something for this extra room for me. And I would just get rides from other people in the area or Kafir himself.
Well, what's Kafir's last name?
Cohen? I think it's spelled like Cohen, I think.
Kafir Cohen. Okay.
Yeah.
It's funny, you mentioned that, though, good memories of that age and doing that. And I feel the same way about my time on staff and at Flag, 13, 14, 15 years old. And it's funny.
No shade again. I'm just going to say there's a huge disconnect. I'm sure a lot of these young child Scientologists had some positive experiences. But what's really sad is a lot of them don't understand. Even though they were on staff and they had a good time, and yes, they were told we're adults in small bodies, they don't seem to understand that that was child abuse. It might look good on the outside. It's like eating a great big piece of chocolate cake. Who doesn't love that? I mean, unless you don't like chocolate. You ate this big, huge piece of chocolate cake, and you know it's too big, you know it's more than you should eat, and then you get a tummy ache. But you're like, oh, that chocolate cake was good. Anyways, I'm just saying, my point is, I'm not shading anyone. I just feel sad that a lot of these child Scientologists don't understand that they were abused. And it's probably from lack of, doesn't necessarily have to be from counseling. You can do your own self-work. There's a lot of books that you can buy to understand, that you were actually abused. That's a huge disconnect. Anyways, just want to bring that up.
Like recalling my own childhood through my own lens, I feel one particular way about it. But, I now have 3 daughters, 18, 16, and 14. And never in a million years would I let any of them do any of that. I feel like you process things differently when it's someone else, especially your own children, than when it's yourself.
Yeah. That's how I'm feeling, because I had my son when I was 21, same age as my mom, and my son's turning, 4 in December. And I have that same mentality where I'm just like, my son is going to be set up for life. Like, I'm saving up for his college. He's going to get a good.
That's where the healing begins, which is beautiful.
Education. Like, he's not dropping out of school. Like, I would never, ever let him do that. Like, and it's like, now as a parent, it's like, I'm still trying to go through the process of like forgiving my mom for some things that we haven't even like discussed yet. But it's hard because then the parent in me is like, I would never put my child through that, or I would never let that happen to my child. So it's just like, you're kind of like bumping heads with it in your head, because you're just like, you can't really comprehend like why a parent would do that. But the only thing that I could say about my mom is like, when I was on staff, she felt like I was safe. She felt like I was doing something good. She was proud of me. Like, that was, out of my entire life, the only time my mom's been happy with me or proud of me was when I was in Scientology on staff. So.
Yeah. You're not in, I'll edit this out if it's a problematic question, but are you in touch with your mom?
No.
Right. Has she ever even met your son?
Yeah, so that was like one of the reasons like why I kept in touch with you, because like I wanted to do a video like 3 years ago, but I didn't because I was still talking to my mom, and I didn't want to risk, her disconnecting from me. But she disconnected from me like, I think it's coming up to like at least a year ago. So we haven't talked in a year, and it was already not the best relationship, because when I left Scientology and like basically said, hey, I found this stuff out online, like.
I just want to bring up, a lot of these older videos where you see people protesting Scientology, they used to be, back in the day, they would call it picketing. And you'd always see people carrying these signs, Scientology disconnects families, Scientology breaks apart families, things like that. I'm going to say something that a lot of people don't like to hear, and I know I'm not like some perfect person, but I want to say that it's you guys doing, like, it's not Scientology, it's you are making those decisions. So you have to, even though it's painful, you have to put the blame on the person who is accepting these Scientology policies to disconnect their families, even under tremendous pressure. So I personally think when people start to admit that, there's going to be more healing. And I'm not a perfect person. I've never been under the duress or stress of what it's like to be in Scientology, and I'm glad. But, that's all I'm saying.
Everything's a lie. She just looked at me like I'm a crazy person. She didn't. And also, it's hard to even explain that to someone who's in that mindset still. And I don't even think I could explain it the way I wanted it to at that time. And just, she doesn't agree with like my life choices and stuff. So towards the end of our relationship, it was almost like she was just being, cordial with me to see my son. Like, she never acknowledged my existence. She'd be like, "Oh, hi, Noah," like my son. And she would just completely ignore me. So like, it was like,
That's narcissistic behavior. I mean, it could be a person that's not a narcissist is just incorporating the Scientology policies, because all of the Scientology policies endorse narcissistic behaviors. Facts.
it didn't exist. And she would be really like rude towards me and just would love up on my son. And like, I wanted her to have a relationship with my son, but also it's like, it hurts as like a daughter of like, okay, you don't care about me. And why am I, keeping in touch with you and, walking on eggshells for you to just treat me like shit? Because even then I deleted my freaking Facebook at one point because the church kept reaching out to my mom to do their dirty work because they saw that I was liking, anti-Scientology posts, like your page or someone else's. They were like, somehow knowing that I was watching this, I don't know how, knowing that I wasn't even sharing stuff. Just the fact that I liked something on Facebook, someone was finding out and someone was telling the church. And then my mom would always have that conversation with me. She's like, you know which road you're going down when you do these things. And I'm just like, so now I don't even have my own right in my own house to watch videos. Like, okay, now it makes sense. So I just deleted my Facebook at that point, and I just did not talk about Scientology, and I just continued on.
Wow. Oh, it is amazing to be reminded how petty Scientology, the community, will be. Even the non-staff, non-Sea Org community, you're someone who everyone knew was barely or not interested in Scientology. You were just going to go and do your own thing. You weren't out there trying to talk to the press or do videos or anything. Mm-hmm. And this...
It's controlling. I agree with what he's saying. It's petty. Absolutely. It's control. Absolutely control.
Snitching culture spares nobody.
Yeah. You're basically a piece of shit if you stray from Scientology, even if you're doing good.
So that's it. I'll leave the link in the description box. I have to say, Isabella has some beautiful hair. I will leave a link in the description box. Like and subscribe if you choose. Otherwise, have an amazing day or night, wherever you are.